Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this next lecture of Dynamics of Machine. And in today's class, we are going to start with the fourth unit, whose title is Friction. So it is related to friction. Now, in previous class, we completed the unit of governor. Okay, and in previous class, we discussed about the properties of governor, such as hunting, then isochronism, then there was effort of governor, then sensitiveness of governor, and all these things we discussed. Okay, so I hope those were clear to you. And if you have any doubt, we'll again resolve them in the forthcoming classes. So let's start with this new chapter. This is the first lecture of this chapter, that is friction. And in this chapter, mainly we will be talking about the applications of friction, which are used in bearings and its application in clutches. Okay, so first, before starting or going into the application, let's just discuss some basics. That is, what is meant by friction and what are the types of friction or classification of friction and so on. All right. So what is a friction? Friction we already know. We have been studying it from I think class 6th onwards. So friction is a resisting force. Is the force resisting to the relative motion of the solid surface, fluid layers, and material elements sliding against each other. So wherever there is relative motion between two surfaces, either those are solid surfaces or maybe those are fluid layers, there will be friction between any two surfaces. If there is relative motion, there will be friction. For example, as you can see in this figure, uh, there is a pushing force in this direction, in horizontally right side direction. So the motion, if this green colored plate is fixed and this blue color plate is free to move, then there will be motion in this direction, right? Towards the direction of pushing force. So obviously we know that friction always acts in the direction opposite to the relative motion, right? So friction will be acting in this direction. Okay. So this is pretty much known to us. Similarly, in case of fluids also, you might have studied the term in fluid mechanics in your previous semesters, that their friction exists there also. So between any two layers, if one layer is moving over another layer, there also friction exists, and we study it in terms of viscosity, right? So I hope you remember this. Now, what are the types of friction? So in general, the friction is of following two types. One is static friction and other one is dynamic friction. So what is static friction? It is a friction experienced by the body when it is at rest. So when a body is at rest, and friction experienced by it is called the static friction. So for example, a table is kept on the floor. So if there is no friction, uh, a small unbalanced force over the table will get the table moving over the floor. Okay, but this does not happens because there is some friction existing between the floor and the legs of the table, right? Now, second one is dynamic friction. Now, what is dynamic friction? It is a friction experienced by a body when in motion. So, when a body is in motion, the kind of friction it experiences is called the dynamic friction. Okay. Now, this dynamic friction is also called kinetic friction. Okay, and is less than the static friction. It is also of three types. Now, when a body is moving, when a body is in continuous motion, and the friction it experiences is the dynamic friction, or the it is also known as kinetic friction. Okay, and its value is generally less than static friction. All right, because in order to overcome static friction, we need to surpass some threshold value of the force, then only we can enter into the from in we can enter into the state of motion from state of rest. Okay, so static friction is always greater than the kinetic friction. Now these kinetic friction are of three types. One is sliding friction, second one is rolling friction, and third one is the pivot friction. Okay, now in it is the what is sliding friction? It is the friction experienced by a body when it slides over another body. So very common example, you might have seen the sliding friction in a piston cylinder arrangement. Okay, now what the piston does inside the cylinder is it slides from TDC to BDC and BDC to TDC. Okay, so there the friction. piston is sliding in the cylinder. Okay, so the friction experienced by the piston will be the sliding friction. Now, second one is rolling friction. It is the friction experienced by the surface which has balls or rollers imposed between them. So this rolling friction is very similar to you might have come across while driving the bike or while writing uh, on a paper using a ball pen. Okay, so there what happens is when the vehicles roll over the surface, there is friction between the surface and the tire, and that kind of friction is called as rolling friction. Or when you are writing from a pen, ball pen, over a paper, so the ball keeps rotating. There is very tiny amount of ball which is in the nib of the pen. Okay, so that ball keeps rotating and the ink flows adjacent to that ball, and it leaves impression on the paper, right? So the friction which we experience while writing while writing with a pen, that friction is rolling friction. Okay, so you might have experienced when you buy a new pen, there is the amount of friction is more while writing in the starting, but after you have written few pages, the pen becomes smooth, or the writing experience from that pen, it becomes smooth. Okay, why? Because initially there is a since it is newly manufactured, so there might be some uh, defects in the nib. Okay, so it gets uh, cleared out while working on the paper. Okay, so that's why initially there is some extra friction, because it is there are some manufacturing defects always. So after some time it gets because of the friction, it gets smoother over the time. All right, now the third type is pivot friction. This, it is a friction experienced by a body due to motion of rotation, as in case of footstep bearing. So this pivot friction we will be discussing in case of the bearing, which we'll discuss in further slides. So pivot is when you uh, make one point stationary, okay, and move rest of the body uh, around that point. So that is a pivot point. Okay, so this happens in case of footstep bearing or vertical shafts, when the vertical shafts are to be supported in different kinds of bearings. In that case, pivot friction comes into the picture. Okay, now the friction is may be further classified as the friction between the unlubricated surfaces and the friction between the lubricated surfaces. Okay, now one thing which I wanted to discuss over here is what is axial force and what is radial force, right? So assume this is a shaft, this blue color, and this is the axis of the shaft. Okay, so when any force is acting along the axis of the shaft, that is called as axial force. And when any force is acting perpendicular to the axis of the shaft, it is known as tangential force, or it is known as radial force. Okay, so these are the two types of forces. So generally, when a shaft is horizontal in direction, it experiences both kinds of forces, that is radial force and sometimes axial force also, depending on the application it is serving. Okay, but in case of vertical shafts, one force that is definitely coming is the axial force, because all of the machine parts are mounted on the vertical shaft, and its weight will be balanced, its weight will be beared by the uh, shaft itself. So there is a huge amount of axial thrust which a vertical shaft will be coming across. Okay, so this is mainly in pivot friction. We will be discussing about the axial force which is coming on the shaft, and ultimately the shaft transfers that axial force to the bearing while rotating. Okay, so there is a lot of friction which it has to overcome to come into the motion. All right, now let's discuss this further, that what is the friction between unlubricated surfaces and friction between lubricated surfaces. Okay, so first let's see friction between unlubricated surface. So if there is no lubrication between two surfaces which are in relative motion, so there will be obviously a lot of friction, right? So the friction experience between two dry and unlubricated surfaces in contact is known as dry friction or solid friction. Okay, it is due to the surface roughness. The dry or solid friction includes the sliding friction and rolling friction as discussed above. Okay, so if there is no lubrication between the two rubbing surfaces, then the friction would be the dry friction or solid friction. All right, and it is mainly due to the surface roughness. Now, friction between lubricated surfaces. So when lubricant such as oil or grease is applied between two surfaces in contact, then the friction may be classified into the following two types depending upon the thickness of the layer. Okay, now lubrication can be done by the oil or grease. So depending upon the thickness of the layer of oil or grease, there are two types of friction. One is boundary friction and second one is fluid friction. Okay, so boundary friction, it is also known as greasy friction or non-viscous friction. So boundary friction is the friction experience between the rubbing surfaces when the surfaces have very thin layer of lubricant. Okay, if the layer is very thin, then the friction experienced by the two rubbing surfaces is called as boundary friction. The thickness of this very thin layer is of molecular dimension. Okay, its thickness will be of molecular level, and in this type of friction, a thin layer of lubricant forms a bond between the two rubbing surfaces. Okay, and the lubricant is absorbed on the surface and forms a thin film. So, since this layer is very thin and it is of order of molecular size, so what will happen? The lubricant gets absorbed on the surface and forms a very thin film. This thin film of the lubricant results in less friction between them. So, since the lubricant is absorbed in both the surfaces, so when these two rub over each other, that lubricant comes into the action and reduces the friction. Okay. Uh, so this the boundary friction follows the law of solid friction. So law of solid friction is followed by boundary friction. Now the second type of lubricated surfaces is fluid friction. Okay, and it is also called as film friction or viscous friction. Now, in this friction, experience between the two rubbing surfaces, when the surface have a thick layer of the lubricant. So when there is thick layer of the lubricant between the two rubbing surfaces, it is called as fluid friction. In this case, the actual surface do not come in contact and thus do not rub against each other. So the fluid film is so thick that the two rubbing surfaces will never come in contact to each other. Okay, and you can visualize that there is a solid surface, then there is a fluid surface, and then again there is a solid surface. So the two solid surfaces are never in contact to each other. Okay, now it is thus obvious that fluid friction is not due to the surface in contact, but it is due to the viscosity and oiliness of the lubricant. So since two solid surfaces are not coming in direct contact to each other, so and the viscosity of the that fluid which is between the two solid surfaces will will decide the friction which will be coming during the motion. Okay, and it will be decided by the viscosity of the fluid and so on. All right. Now, I hope this is clear to you. Now, let's see some of the type of bearings which we will be studying. So, friction in the pivot or collar bearing. So, this we will be studying in this chapter 4. So, the first part of this chapter 4 is the bearings. And the bearings which we will be studying are the pivot bearing and collar bearing. So, what is meant by pivot bearing and what is meant by collar bearing? Let's quickly understand that. The rotating shafts are frequently subjected to axial thrust. So as you can see, these are vertical shafts. In this chapter, we would be studying about the vertical shafts and hence these bearings. Okay, because in horizontal shafts there are different bearings, different kind of bearings are used, which can be of two types, either ball bearing or roller bearing, or they can be hydrodynamic bearing. So those kinds of bearing, the design of those kinds of bearing, you will study in further semesters in the subject of machine design. This bearing, that is the vertical shaft bearing, will be studying over here. Okay, So in this vertical shaft, as I told previously, that most of the load will be coming on the axis of the shaft. Okay, and this axial thrust has to be transferred from shaft to this bearing. Okay, so the rotating shafts are frequently subjected to axial thrust. The bearing surface, such as pivot and collar bearings, are used to take this axial shaft of the axial thrust of the rotating shaft. Okay, so this shaft, the main work of the shaft is to transmit the rotary motion, okay, and torque. So one of the function is this, and the secondary load which the shaft is bearing is this axial thrust. So this axial thrust has to be transferred to some grounded link. Okay, so these bearings are generally grounded links, and the shaft transfers its axial load to these bearings. All right. Now, the propeller shaft of a ship, the shafts of steam turbines and vertical machines shafts are example of the shafts which carry the axial thrust. So these are some applications where the axial thrust or the vertical shafts are used. The bearing surface placed at the end of the shaft to take the axial thrust are known as the pivots. So these bearing surfaces, which these bearing surfaces on which this vertical shaft is coming in contact with, are known as pivot. Okay, the pivot may have a flat surface or conical surface as shown in figure A and B. So it can be of the flat surface of this kind. See, this is a flat surface. Okay, and in figure B you can see conical surface. So this is called as flat pivot, and this one is called as conical pivot. Okay, now when the cone is truncated, it is known as truncated or trapezoidal pivot as shown in figure C. So if we do some stubbing and make this sharp cone as blunt surface, it is called as truncated pivot or trapezoidal pivot. Okay, now uh, the collar may have flat bearing surface or conical bearing surface, but the flat surface is most commonly used. So as you can see that this shaft, there is some step manufactured in this shaft. This step is known as collar of the shaft. Okay, and this collar rests over the bearing surface. Okay, so while rotating, the axial thrust of the shaft will be transferred to the bearing by the help of these collars. Okay, therefore since these are called as collars, so the bearings supporting these collars are called as collar bearings. Okay, now there can be single collar as shown in figure D, or several collars along the length of the shaft as shown in figure E. So a shaft can be having a single collar, or depending upon the load, we have to employ more than one collar. So it can be of uh, several collars. Okay, so it is called as multiple collar, flat collar, and single flat collar. Now these collars can be made in shape of cone also, but those are not in more practice. Most commonly used are these flat collars. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you how what is a pivot bearing, and or what is a pivot, what is meant by the term pivot. Okay, and what is meant by the term collar. All right, so I hope this is clear to you. Now let's move forward and discuss the theoretical or the practical uh, problems which we come across while determining the equations to know the losses due to friction in the shaft. Okay, now the rotating shaft are quite frequently subjected to axial thrust. This we have already seen. In order to preserve the shaft in correct axial position, bearing surfaces has to be provided. So the shaft, in order to keep the shaft in correct axial position, that is, it should not change its position, that is, it should not vibrate too much. Okay, and it should not in order to keep it coaxially with the other mounted uh, mechanical components, the bearing surface has to be provided. So we have to provide some bearing surface. Now these surface carries the thrust pressure. So the whatever axial thrust is coming on the shaft transfers all that axial thrust to the bearing. All right. Now the bearing surfaces provided are at right angles to the axis of rotation or the direction of the axial thrust. So as you can see in the previous slide, uh, the axis of shaft is something like this, and the bearing surface is at right angle to the axis of the shaft. Okay. Uh, Sometimes the conical surfaces are also employed. This we already saw. Example, the axial thrusts are met within vertical machine shafts, propeller shafts, etc. Okay. Now, consequence of such contact bearing is that the torque has to be applied to overcome the resistance due to friction between the surfaces. So as you can see, that shaft, so much of surface is in contact with the bearing, so there will be a lot of friction, and that friction we need to overcome. So a lot of initial torque is required to overcome that friction. Okay. Now this leads to a loss of some of the power in the friction. So since lot of torque is required, so obviously there will be loss of some power to overcome this friction. The essential problem, therefore, is to determine the expression giving the amount of work lost by the friction in such bearings. So we need to derive few equations which will give us the which will give us the amount of friction, amount of torque or amount of power which is lost due to the friction in such bearings. All right. Now, the difficulty arises in this connection of stating the theoretical assumption to be made to derive the expressions for the work loss. So, we need to make some theoretical assumptions in order to understand how much torque or how much power would be lost because to overcome the friction. All right. Now, the present knowledge of friction is insufficient to state with x altitude that the actual physical changes taking place. So, currently, we still do not have enough knowledge of friction to exactly understand or exactly write the equation uh, as per the physical change taking place in the shaft. Okay. Now, in newly fixed bearings, intensity of pressure acting on the flat collar may be assumed uniform at various radii because of the exact tolerance to which the machine component are manufactured. Now, when the new shaft and new bearing are employed, what we can assume is the pressure which is coming due to this axial thrust, that pressure is uniformly varying over the surface of the bearing. Okay, why? Because the tolerances with which the this machine components are manufactured. So since there is exact tolerance in the starting, the type of fit between those two are assumed to be perfect. So you might have studied the fits and tolerances in your previous semesters in manufacturing subject. There are various types of fits such as loose fit, and there is tight fit, then there is interference fit, and so on. Okay. So since the parts are new, there is not much wear and tear in the parts. So what we can assume is that the pressure which is coming due to the load, this axial thrust, the pressure is very uniformly varied over the surface of the bearing. Okay. So this is the first assumption which we would be taking, that the pressure is varying uniformly. So uniform pressure variation is taken as the first assumption. Okay. And on this basis, we will be deriving the expression for the torque or torque which is getting lost in the starting. Okay. Now, so this is the first assumption, that we can assume that the uniform pressure is varying uniformly in the when the both the parts are new. Okay. But the rate of wear, let me take this. Okay. But the rate of wear of the surface does not only depend on the intensity of pressure, but also on the rubbing velocity between the surfaces. So we know this very clearly, that more the amount of velocity present, more will be the friction. Okay. And that because of that, more wear and tear will occur. So and what this is saying is that the wear rate not only depends on the intensity of pressure. We cannot determine the wear rate just by the intensity of pressure, but we also have to consider the rubbing velocity between the two surfaces. So this rubbing velocity is also has to be considered while deriving the expression for uh, frictional torque. Okay. Now the rubbing velocity are obviously different at different radii. Okay. So I hope you know this, that uh, towards the center the rubbing velocity is very less because the radius is very less, right? So we have to convert rotary motion into that is rotary speed into linear speed. The expression is uh, pi dn by 60, right? So and if the value of diameter is less, the linear velocity will be less, and if the value of diameter is more, the linear velocity over there would be more. Okay. So depending on the diameter, at different diameter or at different radius, the rubbing velocities are different. Okay. So thus the rate of wear is a function of intensity of pressure and linear velocity of rubbing. So the second thing which we came across, that the wear and tear which takes place while rotation is that it will depend on two factors. One is the intensity of pressure, and second one is the rubbing velocity of at various radiuses. Therefore, after the shaft has run in the bearing, the pressure distribution over the surface has altered due to the wear, varying wear at different radius. So initially, when the shaft is new, the pressure will be uniformly distributed. Okay. But after some time, after the shaft has run sufficiently in the bearing, what will happen is the pressure distributed over the surface has altered. Why? uh, because of the varying wear at the different radius. So in the center, since the rubbing velocity is less, so the friction will be less, so the wear and tear will be less. But at the higher radiuses, at the outer, as we move outside from center, the rubbing velocity is more, so the friction will be more, so the wear and tear will be more. So after some time, uh, the rate of wear will be different at different radiuses. Besides, it is extremely probable that the coefficient of friction itself may be different at different radius. So another uh, uh, variable which came into the picture is that the coefficient of friction may also vary at various radiuses. Okay. There is an alternative assumption to consider that the rate of wear is uniform over the surface. Okay. So another assumption which can be taken is that the rate of wear rate is uniform, that it is wearing at a uniform rate. Okay. This assumption is likewise present. This assumption likewise presents difficulties. So, though this assumption can be true, but we face some difficulties while deriving the equation for this. Okay. Now, this is talking about the material. The materials used in the construction are not homogeneous, and it is very improbable for a collar or pivot will wear uniformly and keep the shape of the surface unaltered. So the since the materials which we use for manufacturing, they might not be perfect. May be some uh, there may be some in there may be some amount of irregularities in the material. So we cannot say that the wear is uniform. Furthermore, an anomaly is obvious that the assumption of the intensity of pressure increases from outside to the center of shaft until the center where the motion is zero. So at center, the motion will be zero. At extreme radius, the motion will be at maximum velocity. Okay. So we can assume that the pressure must be infinitely great at the periphery, and it gets reduced while coming at the center. So these are the two assumptions which we will be taking while deriving the equation. One is uniform pressure theory, and second one is uniform wear theory. Now, how we will take that? We will discuss for all different types of bearings, that is flat pivot bearing, conical pivot bearing, and single flat collar bearing. Okay, so this we'll be discussing in the further classes. So I hope this is clear to you. What is the friction? What are different types of friction? What are different types of lubrications? And friction and pivot bearing that we will be studying with the help of two theories which we will be considering. So I hope this is clear to you. Thank you for joining everyone. Thank you.